Warren in 3 months later.
Warren Brunswick?
All right, we're going to go ahead and get started so we can make sure we get out on time. So welcome. Good to have all of you here. And you're going to be cheerleaders. Really? Is that possible? Is that possible? Well, time flies, huh? Well, you're starting into this this loop of 3160, 4160, which is really a 2-year action research process. And the idea is that now that you've had an opportunity to see kind of how the mathematicians and the scientists on our campus do pure bench research, we call it, that you did as first-year students, and you have a chance to see how the math and science is used in the field in a practicum setting, we start to turn our attention now to how do teachers and other educators do classroom research. What kind of data can you collect in a classroom to determine what's going on with your students, and how do you use that to guide you to become better teachers? There's a lot of education research that's done that kind of dictates and gives us ideas of how to perform a better practice in our classes. And I sometimes teach a graduate curriculum class, and the last time I taught the course, the first sentence in the book says, "Nobody ignores research like educators." And it's kind of an interesting starting off point in a class like that, because we talk about how in the medical field it would be totally unheard of to ignore research, right? If they did a research on a particular drug and you discover that it had this effect, of course you're going to start to use it if you know that it works. But in education, when we do research on some teaching strategy, we know it works, people like to step back and say, well, it would never work in my classroom, or that isn't really relevant for me, or whatever. So the better we are at research in our own classrooms, the better teachers we become. And so what happens is, over the next couple of years, we're going to be talking about what that looks like, how you do classroom research. And so the 3160 class is a little bit more of kind of looking at the nature of educational research and doing some writing. 4160 is the follow-up to that you actually do during your student teaching. So it's a 2-year kind of capstone project, and we give you plenty of time to work on it, so it's not rushed. The whole idea here is to pace ourselves so that you don't get stressed out over all of this stuff. When we talk about action research, there are really 6 main steps to it. The first is a person identifies a problem or an issue that they want to explore in a school. They look at what studies have already been done that are related to what they're interested in studying, and then they decide what kind of data they might collect in their own classrooms. They go through and collect the data, figure out how to use it to teach better, to have a plan of action, and then share the ideas with other people. So the reason why I put those 6 steps in 2 different colors is that the green steps are basically what we do in 3160, and the blue steps are pretty much what we do in 4160. So what we're going to do is we're going to explore that whole issue of how you identify an issue in education, and how you write what is called a literature review of what others have already learned about it, and talk about how we collect data to conduct a study. And then when you're in your student teaching, that's when you actually conduct the study, write it up, and share it with other people. Okay? In fact, it's a small commercial along the way when it comes to number 6, which is sharing research with other people. 2 weeks from today, during the common time, you probably saw on your calendar that's when we're having a sharing session. The people that are in cohorts 1 and 2, we have 20 people graduating in May. Those people are all in the middle of finishing their capstone projects right now. In fact, the papers are due a week from today. And so for 2 weeks from today, we're having a get-together session for them for an opportunity to share what they did in their research. You are cordially invited to be there. You are not required to be there, but it is during the common time, and if you are free and can make it, I strongly recommend it and would like to see you there. Okay? Reason being, for one, you support the people that are at the cohorts above you, okay? Which is always nice for them to see you there to support them. And then secondly, it gives you some insight of what are other people doing. What did they study, and what kind of results did they come up with? And that may in turn help you to be able to think about what your project might look like as you develop it over the next year or so. We're meeting up on the 11th floor of Offenhauer in the meeting room, the community room. It'll be during the common time. We'll have refreshments at the beginning, and it'll be informal. They're going to just kind of go around more or less in a circle, and each person's going to take no more than 5 to 10 minutes to kind of talk about what they did in their study, what they found out, and so forth. Give you a chance to see what other people are doing. So if you can possibly make it 2 weeks from today, we'd really like to see you there. So they're actually at this final step down here, having started right where you're at 2 years ago. So in the 3160 class, the requirements are kind of 3 major things. One is that we have 6 class sessions. 5 of them will meet this fall during common times. 1 of them will be in January of next year, of 2015, during a common time also. So those are all common time meetings. But we have actual class sessions, and these are the topics that we talk about in the class sessions. Like, what is action research? How is it conducted? How do you write a literature review? How do I go about selecting a topic? What kind of research methodology is out there? And what do we mean by human subjects review, which is kicked around a lot on this campus. So we have different topics for those sessions. You're also going to select a project advisor, and whoever that project advisor is, you will work with that person through the next 2 years on your project. And you have pretty much regular meetings with them. Those meetings can be by phone, virtual meetings, online, you can meet face-to-face now and then, but you stay in constant contact with that project advisor. And then you wrote what we used to call a research proposal. It's really more of a research paper. It's a literature review and a statement of a problem. We'll get into more of that later, but there is a paper that you write as part of the class as you go along. I'll get into that more in just a second. When you get to the 4160 class, 4160 looks like this. We have, during methods semester, we have a couple more. I've got 3 here. There's really 2 during methods and then 1 in student teaching, but we have 3 sessions altogether. We talk about how to collect and analyze data, how to write a research report, and how to present it to other people. You continue to meet with this project advisor, and your requirements are during student teaching to collect and analyze the data and then write your final paper. So the senior year or the student methods and student teaching experience just continues right on from what we do in the fall. Okay? So really, just think of it as a 2-year process that we kind of walk you through. And really, as we go through those 2 years, we want you to have a good experience, to learn a lot, and to enjoy what you're doing. This is not supposed to be a major stress out kind of thing. Actually, what it's supposed to be is a, wow, this is pretty cool. I never thought about before how educators actually do research and how that can influence my own classroom teaching. And I can tell you almost to the person, as I sit in my office this last couple of weeks and I did all the senior interviews with everybody on that board that you see, one by one, when I asked them about things that were highlights of action during their 4 years, one of the first things they mentioned is this action research project and how much they learned from it and how much better of a teacher they're going to be because of what we did during those 2 years. So even though sometimes you're grinding out, you got a chapter to read, you got to come to a class or whatever it happens to be, you'll learn a ton and it will make you a better teacher. And it will give you something that nobody else gets as an undergrad, because I can tell you this process of doing action research and doing what we're going to be doing here, I was not personally taught how to do until I was working on my master's degree. It's really more of a master's level kind of a thing. We looked at it and said, hey, we're action. We're better than that. We don't have to wait until you're a master's. You can do it now. And so we're kind of pushing that stuff down and teaching you to do things that most people don't learn to do until after they've graduated and gone out in the field and come back for a master's degree. Okay? So that's kind of the general design of things. So let's take a look together at the syllabus. If you take a look at that stapled sheet, there's a course description on there and a list of learning outcomes, which you can read yourself. This is kind of standard boilerplate stuff. One of the things that I do want to mention is at the top of the sheet, it gives a textbook that's required, a short guide to action research. We will provide that for you. Raise your hand if you've taken a class on campus where your professor gave you your textbook. All right, you've just met your first one. Oh, you got one?
Yeah, it was a leadership class.
Oh, leadership class. Okay, let's talk about a regular class. Because this professor actually gives you your book. How cool is that? All right, so, well, actually, I don't give it to you. The action program does, right? So we take course fee money, and we're able to buy your books with it. So you will be provided this book. And that's something else I heard in these meetings. I keep looking over here because this is where we sat. But people tell me that was just a really good book. In fact, one of our seniors just said to me the other day in our interview, she said, that book is going on my shelf. It's not going anywhere else because there is so much great stuff in that book. And there is. It's just really good about laying out kind of step by step what classroom research looks like. But we will provide that for you. Okay, if you flip over to the back, there are 3 things that determine your kind of your assessment, your grade, if you will, in our 3160 class. The first one is your regular attendance and participation. So attendance at all full class sessions during the common time is required. You are expected to do readings from the book and articles before class sessions. You will be assessed in this area based on attendance and positive contributions to class discussions. You need to be here for class. This is just like any other class that you take. You know, it's going to be 4:30 to 5:50. Doesn't meet every week. Only meets 5 times in the fall, but it's a regular class for you. You're going to come in here, and and we're going to have reading assignments and different things that we work on. But it runs a little bit differently because it's kind of a little bit more of a discussion type of deal where I'll give you some stuff like hands-on to do during class time that you're going to be discussing with one another. Sometimes your project advisors actually come to class with you and they're sitting right next to you and you can bounce ideas and talk to them when they're able to come as well. So it's a little bit different that way, but we need for you to be here. So your attendance is required for those. And we have the tentative class topics, and I'm glad that I typed tentative because one of them has changed already. Session number 1 is scheduled for September 2nd and so forth, but session number 5, which is on research methodology, is now going to be on December 2nd. We bumped it back 2 weeks, so if you want to change that on yours, you can. So where it says 11/18, that's going to be 12/2. So we have a class session roughly every couple of 2-3 weeks, whatever, as we go through the fall. So you meet 5 times during the 15 weeks. And then we meet one last time in January of next year, which we'll announce that date later when the common times get together. So that's the first thing, is coming to class and doing all of your required reading and stuff. The second thing, and this is really important, in fact, it's so important I'm going to do this. I have a copy of it to pull up here. This is the checklist. This is the other handout that you have. You take a look at that for a second. This is called the Project Advisor Checklist. So Wendy's going to talk to you a little bit more in a minute about getting your project advisor, but you're going to have one faculty member that you work with through the next 2 years. And it is really, really important that you work closely with that person. Okay? This is not just a person you identify them and say, hey, will you be my advisor? And then you ignore them for the next 2 years. And at the end you say, hey, here's my paper. This is a person that you will work with a lot. You're going to be in constant communication with them. Here's what I'm thinking. What do you think of this? Here's a draft of my first page. Does that sound right? You're going to be working with this person a lot. So you want to make sure that you select a faculty member that you're really comfortable with that will be able to work with you. This faculty member has to be either math faculty, science faculty, or education faculty. Okay? You can't have somebody from the sociology department, okay, or whatever. So it's got to be a math, a science, or from education. Somebody that you know from a class that you've had, perhaps, or somebody that you've worked with during summer bridge, or whatever it happens to be, but somebody from math, science, or education. Now, what we do is, when we get to the end of next year, so here we are, April 1st, 2015, we are asking your faculty advisor, did you actually work with them hand in hand throughout this last year? And so they are going to actually rate you in, they're going to rate you in 4 different areas. The first is, did you set and meet deadlines for research and writing throughout the semester? If you did that, you get an excellent check, right? Discussed, wrote, and submitted an acceptable proposal, or written paper, we probably should say, what to adjust that to. Check that out. Did you communicate regularly with the project advisor to provide updates, ask questions, etc.? Your communication with them has been good, that's great. Did you act professionally in the process, including keeping appointments, asking good questions, etc.? Now you might look at those and say, that's pretty good common sense stuff, right? And I hope that it is. I can tell you that some of your peers haven't always done as well at those things as I would like to have seen. Okay, we have had people that got a project advisor and really pretty much ignored them and didn't do a whole lot with the advisor, and all of a sudden said, here's a draft of my paper, and we haven't even talked to it in 3 months, And so the faculty members get a little hot under the collar about that. They want to help you. They're there to help you, and they don't like you going weeks at a time without communicating with them. And likewise, we also have had just a couple of issues, not a big deal, but keeping appointments. So you decide, I'm going to meet with my advisor, and you talk to them and you say, hey, let's meet next Thursday at 4 o'clock, and then you forget. And they sit in their office for an hour waiting for you, you don't show up. Major problem, okay? So you need to conduct yourself professionally, communicate with that person, stay in contact with them. And so that's why at the end of the year, we have them evaluate you, and you get a score based on this scale out of 30 points for your ability to work with them. If you're good about it, you work with your faculty advisor, you meet with them, you set deadlines, you do exactly what you've been asked to do, that should be a slam dunk of the 30 points. On the other hand, we just want to make sure that you're communicating